Welcome everyone. Today we would like to give you a comprehensive update on our ESG activities. ESG is a top priority for Mercedes-Benz. It includes many aspects, and all of them are reflected in our sustainable business strategy. Our main concern as a luxury and tech car company is to contribute to fight climate change. We are convinced that demand for individual mobility is still on the rise. Global car markets will grow, and our mission is to meet this need in a sustainable way. We all need maximum dedication to achieve the goal of the Paris Agreement. 1.5 degrees, that is the number that we need to focus on. And climate change is the most important task of our generation. How can we contribute as a company? First, let's have a look at our goals. What do we want to achieve? Afterwards, my colleagues will present how we want to get there. Sustainability is one of the guiding principles in our strategy. And our path to carbon neutrality is ambitious. We have set ourselves measurable goals. In 2022, we want to achieve CO2 neutral production. In 2025, we want to have up to 50% of our sales as xEVs, and by the end of this decade, we will be ready to go all electric wherever market conditions allow. And by 2039, along the whole value chain, we want to be CO2 neutral. The key to achieving this is a highly attractive electric portfolio. We introduced 4 new battery electric vehicles last year, and 2 new electric SUVs will follow this year. Demand is on a very high level. We significantly increased our xEV share in 2021, and our goals for 2022 is to increase xEV sales by more than 40% and our battery electric vehicle sales by more than 100%. We have momentum, and Marcus will tell you more about that in our product roadmap. Our ambition is also to build sustainable cars in a sustainable way. We're reaching a milestone already this year, 2022. Our own vehicle production locations are now CO2 neutral. And what's next? We will increase our share of renewables massively. The target is to exceed 70% by 2030. We will not only use clean energy in a much bigger scale, but also produce it. It's a long way to go, and Jörg will elaborate on this. This means that we need to foster sustainable business along the entire value chain. And I'm happy to announce that a vast majority of our suppliers have signed a letter to follow our ambition to become CO2 neutral. This will be an awarding criteria. If you want to do business with us in the future, you need to have a sustainable business strategy. Another key criterion is human rights to be respected by partners and suppliers. Renata will introduce to you our systematic approach to identify and mitigate risks early on. All these initiatives and measures taken together means that I'm happy to announce that we want to reduce life cycle emissions per average fleet car by 50% until the year 2030. And to transform our business, we also need to transform. We have defined actions in 3 fields: reshaping the workforce, reskilling, and also recharging our team. An example of reskilling is 42,000 colleagues have been qualified in e-mobility in the last 2 years in Germany alone. We're making significant progress in our ICE plant transformation, and you'll hear more about this from Sabine. We all know that diverse teams are more successful. Mercedes-Benz is diverse already. In fact, we exceeded our diversity targets in 2021, but we have set more ambitious goals. We want to have at least 30% women in leadership positions by the year 2030. These ESG aspects are also reflected in our management compensation, so we can internalize it in our corporate culture. Recently, we sharpened transformation targets to even better match ESG. Renata will tell you more about that. ESG is also reflected in our supervisory board. 2 new members are proposed for election by our annual general meeting in a couple of weeks' time. Experts for ESG and luxury, Dame Polly Cortis, as well as Marco Gobetti. An overall principle in this effort is transparency in our processes and along the value chain. We recently published our climate policy report. It creates full transparency on how we align industrial interests with climate protection. We welcome the Lobby Register Act in Germany, and we have registered voluntarily in Brussels Transparency Register of the EU. To sum it up, sustainability is a key task for mankind. 2 things will be decisive for our success: more collaboration between economic, political, and societal players, and to accelerate actions. Mercedes-Benz is fully committed, and this course will also lead our company into an economically successful future. Harold will tell you how sustainability and profitability go together at Mercedes-Benz. So this is our program for today. A lot to talk about in detail, so let's jump right in. Marcus, it's your turn.
Thank you, Ola. Hello, everyone. I'm Markus Schäfer, and I can proudly say that I started my career at Mercedes-Benz over 30 years ago. In my current role, I'm responsible for the holistic development process of Mercedes-Benz cars, as well as procurement. You just heard Ola say it. We are following a holistic sustainability strategy. And of course, our R&D and purchasing activities play a crucial role in this. I'd like to now focus on 2 aspects. 1, our efforts regarding decarbonization. This is a major goal for climate-friendly mobility in this decade. And 2, our efforts to preserve the natural resources of our planet to stay within its boundaries. In order to make headway in both regards, we take the entire value chain of our vehicles into consideration. And we define concrete goals to measure our progress. The most important one, our Ambition 2039. We are determined to have a completely CO2 neutral new car fleet in 2039. This means that we are deeply committed to the targets of the Paris Agreement. They are in line with our fundamental convictions, and we know this will require decisive action. As early as 2019, we already had our climate protection objectives verified by the Science Based Targets Initiative, SBTi. Also, we are working with various scenarios regarding future developments in the coming decades. And we are willing to adapt our efforts if needed. Our commitment? Within this decade, our aim is to at least halve the CO2 emissions per passenger car over the life cycle. Importantly, we will not simply bail out by balancing out emissions. We'll focus strongly on actually reducing them. And we are determined to achieve substantial reductions through technical innovation. Let me just mention that we will focus on our passenger car business today. However, we will adapt these targets and processes to make sure that Mercedes-Benz vans will also follow accordingly. So, what are the steps we are taking? When we talk about decarbonizing our business, we achieve the greatest impact through electrifying our portfolio. This is how we can radically reduce the amount of CO2 emissions during the use phase of the vehicles. And indeed, we are progressing in leaps and bounds here. By the end of 2022, we'll have launched 9 all-electric cars and vans. This includes our new electric flagship, the EQS, our EQA, which targets younger customers, and our first fully electric MPVs, the EQV and the EQT. All these models are evidence of our intention to become all electric within this decade, wherever market conditions allow. By 2025, our customers will be able to choose an all-electric alternative for every model we make. After this, every new Mercedes-Benz vehicle architecture will be electric only. At the same time, Mercedes-Benz is a business, a very successful one, and we intend to keep it that way. This means we want to take our customers on a journey. We want to build the most desirable cars in the electric age as well. One major ingredient of this is exceptional range. Evidently, we can simply put giant batteries in our cars, but this would make them heavy. Instead, we want to make the best use of the energy we have on board of our vehicles. In other words, efficiency is key. That's why we optimize our cars in this regard. Indeed, this helps our customers to save money, and it can reduce the usage of resources and costs for us as well. Our Vision EQXX exemplifies our approach. It's an embodiment of our determination to demonstrate our technological leadership. Its battery pack holds about the same amount of energy as the battery of our EQS. However, the battery is roughly 50% smaller and 30% lighter than that of the EQS. With a drag coefficient of 0.17, the EQXX sets a new record. We've made extensive use of lightweight measures, including bionic engineering, which is inspired by natural forms. And we have optimized the car down to the last detail, from solar panels on its roof to its low-resistance tires. As a result, the EQXX can use an incredible 95% of its energy for its propulsion. Compare this to the only 30% you can achieve with the most efficient ICE drivetrain. On one battery charge, the EQXX can cover about 1,000 kilometers in real life. This is not just a claim. We've proven it and will let you know on April 14th. Let me emphasize that this car is not just a pretty toy. It's part of an extensive technology program with a clear goal of learning for our series production. One key aspect where we are making substantial progress is the battery. Indeed, high-tech batteries are not the only key to outstanding range. In the electric era, the battery is also our biggest lever reducing CO2 in our supply chain. The example of the EQS shows, with the current EU electricity mix, supply chain and production accounts for more than half of the CO2 emissions during the life cycle. Using renewable energy, this portion can be significantly reduced. By transitioning to CO2-neutral cell production, we have already cut emissions for the production of our entire battery pack by 20%. By addressing further measures, for example, improving the anode and cathode production process, we'll reach further CO2 savings. And we keep expanding our R&D activities for our batteries on chemistry, design, and process levels. We are boosting our own research and development at the Mercedes-Benz Drive System Campus in Stuttgart. Like with the combustion engines, we are developing a deep system understanding and competence of battery technology in our own team. So we are evolving our skills and the knowledge to propel the transition of Mercedes-Benz business forward. A key element of our strategy is to combine our knowledge with that of cutting-edge global tech partners. We have joined ACC to contribute to the creation of a European battery cell champion. We have strategic partnerships with Ferrosys and CATL to develop and industrialize highly advanced and competitive cell technologies. And for high silicon anodes, working with partners like Sila Nano, we see great potential in energy density. In fact, we are looking at more than 800 watt-hours per liter at cell level by mid of the decade. By the middle of the decade, we will also use LFP batteries in our series production vehicles. So what's so special about LFP? These batteries have a completely cobalt-free cathode. Are we progressing with scientific developments? Absolutely yes. Recently, we announced 2 research partnerships with Prologium and Factorial. Both companies work on solid-state batteries. This technology offers promising opportunities in terms of energy density and thus vehicle range. This means a smaller battery and less resource usage for a given range. Also, it can provide faster charging and more safety. We expect series production by 2028. As you can see, we are making sure our batteries can do a lot with the energy they hold. At the same time, we need to consider where our cars can be charged and what kind of energy is put into them. For truly sustainable individual mobility, we need to charge from renewable energy sources. Obviously, this aspect falls into responsibility of other players, like energy companies and those in politics. However, we are not just standing by. This is what our green charging approach is all about. Whenever you charge your Mercedes-Benz with Mercedes Me Charge, we ensure that the equivalent amount of electricity from renewable sources is fed into the grid. In fact, Mercedes-Benz is the first OEM with such a product on the market. Plus, we are expanding the available infrastructure. More than 700,000 charging points are integrated worldwide for our customers. At home, you can use our new intelligent Mercedes-Benz wall box. It allows you to control the charging process via our Mercedes Me app. And it has the technical capability to receive over-the-air updates. This makes it future-proof. Just as we want to push the transition towards decarbonization with renewable energy, we have the clear target of minimizing the resources we use. This is a major lever for a sustainable fleet, not least of all because any resources we don't need won't create any CO2 emissions. For example, we reduced the content of cobalt in the cathodes of the EQS battery to 10%. And we are planning to source this raw material exclusively from certified mines in the future. That's important in terms of human rights protection as well. Renata Jungo-Brünger will talk about this in more detail. As part of our holistic approach towards sustainability, we are exploring the use of sustainable materials. We want to shift to renewable and secondary raw materials. This starts in a very early phase of vehicle development. This is what we mean when we speak of design for environment. Again, the Vision EQXX is a prime example here. Inside, you can find vegan leather alternatives made from mycelium and cactus-based material, or carpets made from bamboo fiber. In many ways, we learn from the EQXX for our series production. Indeed, we are already using some of the materials tested in this car in our EQS and EQE. For example, we recently introduced cable ducts made with upcycled household waste to these all-electric models. All in all, as many as 186 components and parts of the EQX are already made from resource-conserving materials. Another example of our sustainable approach to resources is leather. Starting next year, we'll begin to equip our vehicles exclusively with sustainably processed genuine leather. It will be produced taking animal welfare, resource conservation and climate protection into account. Next to using sustainable materials to build our cars, we strive to establish a circular economy. This helps us to make sure recycled materials are available on the markets. This is why we are consistently increasing the use of recycled materials. To be precise, we want to double the share of recycled material used to build our cars within the next 10 years. Let's take a closer look at this. As of today, 95% of our vehicles are already recoverable. And we want to help make sure their materials actually are recovered after the use phase. Again, batteries are a prime example. In 2021, we approved our internal Design for Circularity strategy. It covers 3 aspects: design for circularity, preserving values, and closing the loop. What does it mean? As early as the design phase, we consider circular approaches together with our suppliers and partners. We ensure our batteries last for a long time and can be easily repaired. Also, we make sure they are suitable for second life applications. For example, we offer innovative energy storage solutions through our subsidiary MB Energy. Finally, we take care of our batteries at the end of their lifetime. This includes providing for best-in-class recycling solutions for the closing the loop of battery-grade material. The circular battery economy helps us address the challenges arising from resource scarcity, sourcing dependencies, cost, and human rights protection in our supply chain. And we live up to our responsibility with our 100% subsidiary Leikola. More by Jörg Burzer. With that, let's take a closer look at our supply chain. With electric mobility, sustainable supply chains will become even more important. Why is that? With combustion engines, a significant amount of CO2 emissions originates during the use phase of the vehicle. With electric driving, the greater part of emission shifts towards the supply chain. So we need the cooperation of our suppliers. And we intend to go forward in close cooperation with them so they can follow our lead. This starts with the fact that we follow a local for local approach. We need to source close to our production. This is why, for example, we recently announced that we will establish battery cell production in the United States. What's more, we are including our suppliers in our Ambition 2039. We have integrated sustainability requirements into all our purchasing activities and awarding processes. In fact, suppliers representing 90% of our annual purchasing volume have already signed our ambition letter and have agreed to supplying us with CO2 neutral goods in the future. Plus, we have integrated CO2 emission reduction as a key sourcing criterion. This applies to our upcoming Mercedes-Benz modular architecture MMA for compact and medium-sized cars. Since transparency is crucial to creating a sustainable supply chain, we'll also strengthen the Catena-X tracking system for commodities. We will start with a focus on tracking steel, batteries, and semiconductors. This will improve our current upstream CO2 emissions tracking. To ensure rapid progress in reducing emissions in our supply chain, we have identified the biggest levers for sustainability in our sourcing. I've already talked about batteries. Steel is next in line. As much as 30% of all CO2 emissions in vehicle production derive from steel. This is why we are setting up a green steel supply chain. Some body-in-white parts of the Vision EQXX are made of low CO2 flat steel. It's produced by Salzgitter Flachstahl from 100% scrap steel. Our partner Big River Steel uses a similar technology. And we have 2 collaborations with Swedish partners who are working on nearly CO2-free steel from hydrogen-based productions, SSAB and H2 Green Steel. We'll start using green steel for the in-house part production of various new models as of 2025. We will follow similar approaches for other CO2-intensive materials, such as aluminum and polymers. As for aluminum, we'll already source primary materials with a significantly reduced CO2 footprint for the structural body-in-white castings. They are produced in our foundry at Mettingen. Thanks to the use of renewable energies, its CO2 emissions are about 50% lower than that of average aluminum used in Europe. As you can see, creating truly sustainable vehicles is an enormous task. We are tackling it aspect for aspect, detail for detail. And we are considering the entire life cycle of our products to achieve the impact we want. The good news is we've already made big steps forward along our way to sustainable future of mobility. Of course, we can't do this alone. We need the cooperation of our partners and suppliers, and we need politics to provide the right framework. But we are doing everything within our power to create truly sustainable vehicles. With that, let's take a look at our vehicle production. We will hear more about this from my colleague Jörg Burzer.
Thank you, Markus. My name is Jörg Burzer and I'm Head of Production and Supply Chain Management at Mercedes. In addition to developing next-generation zero-emission cars, Mercedes-Benz has pledged to make vehicle production CO2 neutral this year and CO2 free in Europe. This is a central pillar on our way to Ambition 2039. The importance of energy as part of our sustainability strategy has only increased with the rise of geopolitical tensions. It's our ambition to make all Mercedes-Benz factories renewable energy production sites. Going forward, we will increase our use of clean energy and we will also produce it on site. Sustainable production at Mercedes-Benz will literally mean producing sustainability. This will come from additional renewable energy capacity generated through new wind and solar energy production. On top of this, renewable energy capacity will also be increased through power purchase agreements. In total, we plan to cover 100% of our electricity needs and more than 70% of our energy needs through renewable sources. At our Factory 56 in Sindelfingen, where we built the Mercedes-Benz S-Class and the EQS, producing sustainability is already reality. This is thanks to its innovative energy concept that includes a photovoltaic system, a DC power grid, and energy storage systems based on reused vehicle batteries. Conserving resources and reducing energy consumption are the cornerstones of this approach. At this site, near our headquarters in Germany, self-generated green electric power is sufficient to cover about 30% of the factory's annual power requirements. A stationary energy bank based on reused electric vehicle batteries acts as a buffer for excess solar power from the roof. There are plans on approximately 40% of the roof area, which improves the interior climate and helps retain rainwater for other uses. This comprehensive approach to sustainability means that total energy requirements at Factory 56 are 25% lower than at other assembly sites. To increase in-house energy production, solar cells with an output corresponding to more than 1,000 photovoltaic systems on single-family homes equal to more than 11 megawatts peak will go into operations on the roofs of Mercedes-Benz buildings in Germany by the end of next year. By 2025, we will invest a triple-digit million amount to install photovoltaic systems across a surface area of more than 600,000 square meters. The rollout has already started in Germany at locations including Rastatt, Bremen, Sindelfingen, and continues across our global production network, including Kecskemét in Hungary and Tuscaloosa in the United States. Working together with Alabama Power in the United States, Mercedes-Benz got approval in December to install an 80-megawatt solar project in Alabama. As part of a 15-year power purchase agreement, Mercedes-Benz will receive the entire electric output from the project after it goes live in March 2024. That's just one part of our broader push into renewables. Mercedes is also investing in wind energy. We are in advanced discussions with partners to purchase additional wind energy through power purchase agreements equal to 1 billion euros by mid-decade. Overall, we aim to generate 15% of our energy needs from solar and wind generated by our own sites by the end of the decade. This comes in addition to energy purchased from external providers. The next step is to make our logistics CO2 neutral as well. We already move electric vehicle batteries, which are used in our EQE models, 650 kilometers from our battery production site in Hedelfingen to our auto assembly plant in Bremen using rail. Using this means of transport, powered by green energy, cuts between 80 and 100% of CO2 emissions when compared to road freight. That's why we've just signed a deal to build a new logistics center in Jawor, Poland, to enable CO2-neutral rail transport of automotive batteries from Poland to the other plants in our global production network. To shorten transport routes, we built our new US battery plant in Bibb County, a short drive away from our main production facility in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. We are also cutting waste. Our use of water will be cut by 35% by 2030, thanks to multi-reuse of water in production. In Alabama, rainwater is collected from the roof. In Sindelfingen, we save approximately 350,000 cubic meters of water per year through recycling and multi-reuse. Mercedes-Benz AG is also using similar levers to boost the sustainability of the plant's heat supplies. Among other things, the company is planning to use biogas and biomass as well as geothermal and solar thermal energy instead of conventional gas. This will help cut the CO2 footprint of our paint shops, which require heat to ensure that paint dries. At the Bremen plant, for example, CO2 emissions are being significantly reduced partly by the use of district heating. And we will invest more than 1 billion euros globally into the modernization of our paint shops by 2030. It's part of Mercedes-Benz efforts to close the loop in a circular economy. This includes starting a CO2-neutral recycling factory in Kuppenheim, Germany, to recycle end-of-life electric vehicle batteries. Here we use a new hydrometallurgical technique which increases the recovery rate to 96%. The Kuppenheim facility is part of a broader global recycling push aimed at resource conservation. Cooperation plans with partners in the United States and China will ensure that we will close the materials loop worldwide. To summarize, we have set new standards for sustainability in automotive production, creating a blueprint for efficiency and sustainability with Factory 56. Having achieved CO2-neutral production at our own plants in 2022, we will keep doubling down on increasing and deepening the level of sustainability at Mercedes-Benz. We do this so that we can continue our legacy of blazing a trail in the automotive industry and help to set new standards in a new, emission-free, sustainable era. In a nutshell, sustainable production at Mercedes-Benz literally means producing sustainability.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Sabine Kohleisen. I'm board member at Mercedes-Benz, responsible for HR and Director of Labor Relations. My colleagues Markus Schäfer and Jörg Burzer explained how we want to achieve our goals of CO2-neutral mobility and production. Let's consider this the E of ESG. I'd like to take a look with you at the S. not S as in the S-Class, nor the EQS, but as in the social aspects of the transformation. Social responsibility, especially towards our employees, is a central task for me as Chief HR Officer. Our 172,000 people at Mercedes-Benz around the world are the most valuable asset of our company. Only with them can we reach our goals and bring our strategies to life. Therefore, it is the task of my team and myself to create optimal conditions for everyone who wants to shape this transformation with us. And we're doing this in a responsible way. Around 9 months ago, I had the opportunity to present to you our people plan during the Mercedes-Benz strategy update, Electric Drive. Today, I'd like to give you some updates and insights where we are with the implementation of our 3 Rs. And even if we call it a people plan, one thing is clear. There is no one-size-fits-all plan in a global company with over 40 production plants and, as I said before, around 172,000 employees. From blue-collar workers to engineers, and white-collar workers in administration to retailers. This is why, to reach our goals, we prepare individual plans for all plans and functions, plus some overarching measures. Therefore, I'd like to start with one example of a people plan that explains the 3R strategy very well. The plan for Berlin-Marienfelde. Berlin-Marienfelde is Mercedes-Benz's oldest plant. Opened in 1902, this plant was the first. 120 years later, it is again the first. It's the first plant to be transformed from a conventional powertrain production plant into a competence center for the digitalization of the Mercedes-Benz production network, the Mercedes-Benz Digital Factory Campus. The focus is set on the development and implementation of MO360, the digital Mercedes-Benz production ecosystem. This means a huge transformation for the plant and its employees. Let me explain the 3 pillars of our plan for Berlin. In terms of reshaping and reducing personnel cost, we agreed with the Works Council on a responsible way, focusing on staff fluctuation and fair solutions. Further examples are mutually voluntary arrangements and severance payments, as well as attractive conditions for the transition to retirement. But even more important, we offer extensive qualification programs with a focus on digitalization and e-mobility. One lighthouse project of the 2nd pillar, Reskill, is that we offer employees who've previously worked on the production line to become junior software developers. This pilot project was launched in mid-October with a so-called Digital Challenge. 11 employees were finally selected and are now undergoing a training of around 6 months. I've met these colleagues and I'm very enthusiastic as they are participating in this qualification with heart and soul. In the next step, we'll expand the pilot project to the Untertürkheim plant. The 3rd pillar, Recharge, is all about the working experience and working environment of our employees. Here are some proof points. With the acquisition of the British electric motor company YASA, we have secured access to unique technology in the field of axial flow electric motors. This was the first step in the transformation of the plant from producing combustion engines to electric mobility. The Mercedes-Benz Digital Factory Campus will also offer a state-of-the-art working environment. In cooperation with the Works Council, we continuously explain the purpose of this transformation and take the employees along with us on the transformation journey. Where do we stand with the overarching measures that I mentioned? Let me give you some insights. We need to bring new talent on board, but also become more efficient and leaner in other areas. We want to do this in a fair and socially responsible way. A just transition, as you might call it. Regarding a leader organization, I already talked about the solutions that we agreed on with the Works Council. But we also offer our employees the possibility to receive a job in another plant close by. For example, a change from Untertürkheim to Sindelfingen, which is a distance of less than 30 kilometers. To recruit new talent, specifically software engineers, to work on our very own MBOS operating system, we designed, together with the Works Council, a very attractive package for this special target group. We want to hire 3,000 software engineers worldwide, and we already have managed to inspire around 2,400 IT cracks to join Mercedes-Benz in just a very short time. But even more important, we train our existing workforce. We provide future-oriented qualifications and support our people with qualification offers in all areas. Our current focus, of course, lies on qualification offers for electromobility and digitalization. Ola Kelenius already mentioned it. In our tech academies in Germany alone, we qualified around 42,000 employees in the field of e-mobility during the last 2 years. With the shift to e-mobility accelerating, we will also further expand our training courses and opportunities for our employees. In the field of digitalization, we offered a digital readiness program to all administrative staff to self-check their digital competencies and to improve them in an online qualification. Furthermore, we invest in the qualification of so-called data workers who collect, store, manage, analyze, and visualize data to support decision-making processes. In 2021, our employees attended around 1.3 million hours of qualification training, and we invested 155 million euros into education and training in Germany. That's already an impressive number, which will increase significantly over the next few years. And we are currently working on an integrated learning ecosystem. We want to take learning to a new level. Only like this can we live up to our claim of successfully shaping the transformation. And last but not least, we want to make sure to provide a modern, flexible, diverse working environment in which everyone can develop optimally and contribute their skills and personalities. When I speak of flexible working environment, the first thing that probably comes to our mind is flexible working hours. Yes, especially in administrative areas, we offer various work models to ideally combine work and private life. Of course, we offer mobile working, in Germany even up to 5 days a week, and we are happy to give the go-ahead for hybrid working as soon as the pandemic fully allows it. This is a new form of collaboration, the collaboration of the future. And again, there is no one-size-fits-all plan for this. Our teams decide which combination of mobile and in-office work to implement based on the local circumstances and the team's tasks and needs. The pandemic put our collaboration and processes to the test, and I'm pleased to say that we have come through this period very well, both economically and, above all, culturally. Digital technologies and hybrid working models bring us closer together as one Mercedes-Benz team. Especially in a global company as ours is, with employees of 150 nationalities in 41 countries and multiple time zones. Today, an increasing number of customers is female. This is one of the reasons why we think that women should be represented within the workforce and, moreover, in leadership positions in adequate proportions. Back in 2006, the company was one of the first in Germany to set itself the voluntary target of increasing the proportion of women in senior management positions worldwide to 20% by the end of 2020. This goal has been achieved. At Mercedes-Benz, the current proportion of women in senior management positions worldwide is 22.5%. In the executive board, we make up almost 40%. This is why our ambition is clear. We want to fill more management positions with qualified women and are aiming for a share of 30% in 2030 as the next step. It might seem like a small step, knowing that 50% of the world's population is female. But it is, in fact, a big step for our industry, as the proportion of women in technical courses of studies and professions is still below average. Earlier, my colleagues were talking about investments. We not only invest in sustainable production sites, a battery network, all-electric architectures, new technologies and partnerships. As our employees are enabling this transformation, we invest in them. We invest in their training, good working conditions, and above all, in their well-being. Our corporate healthcare management offers regular health checks, social counseling, and training in terms of sports, mindfulness, and healthy nutrition. On paper, that's an investment of around 6.6 million euros a year in Germany alone. From the perspective of our employees, the transformation means a lot of change, some challenges, but most of all, great opportunities. As I said in the beginning, change will only happen with the people. And with all of them, the management, they provide a vision, they need to act as role models. The employees, they need to feel and see the necessity for change. They need to accept it and be an active part of it. And the Works Council, accepting that you give and take. As the plant may get smaller from a quantity point of view, the future is bright with the right products. In this way, we're making sure to remain the most attractive employer for our employees and also for future talents. We are the Mercedes among employers. And now, please let me hand it over to Renata.
Thank you, Sabine, for explaining our sustainable people strategy. My name is Renata Jungo-Brünger. I'm the responsible board member for integrity and legal affairs. I will focus on another topic from the S in ESG, safeguarding human rights in our supply chains, from the mine to the Mercedes. Respecting human rights is crucial to us for 3 reasons. First, we have an inner drive for respecting human rights. Second, respecting human rights is an integral part of our promise as a luxury brand. Third, respecting human rights is not only a fundamental requirement of civil society, but more and more also of applicable law. Just like investing in technologies to reduce our CO2 footprint, investing in human rights will pay off, also from a financial standpoint. Our major investment in this area is our Mercedes-Benz Human Rights Respect System. When we established it years ago, we were pioneers within the automotive industry. The Human Rights Respect System addresses the core elements of human rights due diligence and puts us in a good starting position to fulfill upcoming supply chain regulations. The key challenge with regard to human rights in our supply chains is complexity. We at Mercedes-Benz have more than 40,000 direct suppliers, many more sub-suppliers, and up to 7 supply tiers. In such complex networks, respecting human rights cannot be ensured by pushing a button. That much should be clear. The only promising, realistic way forward for a global player like us is a systematic, risk-based approach. And that's what we are doing with our human rights respect system. This approach is in line with the UN Guiding Principles for Business and Human Rights, to which we are fully committed. What does this mean in practice? Let me give you a concrete example. The most salient human rights risks lie deep in the supply networks. For example, at the mining sites for raw materials where we have no direct contractual influence. We therefore carefully analyzed what's in our products and identified 24 raw materials that come with certain human rights risks. We are presenting the complete list for the first time publicly today. For these raw materials, we follow a three-step approach to minimize human rights risks. Let me illustrate this approach with the example of lithium, a raw material which is well known to be crucial for battery cells. The first step is to increase transparency along the supply chain. For lithium, we worked closely together with our battery cell suppliers and received self-disclosures. We were able to track that some of the lithium in our battery cells comes from Australia, another part from South America. The next step is to identify risk hotspots. We found out that a risk hotspot in our lithium supply chain is Chile. Its extraction there is associated with negative impacts on the environment and on communities in the Salar de Atacama. The last and most important step is to define and implement measures tackling those impacts. This is why we initiated the Responsible Lithium Partnership together with other companies, coordinated by the German Agency for International Cooperation. This partnership seeks to connect all local stakeholders, including indigenous communities, in a joint vision for the Salar de Atacama. With multi-stakeholder initiatives like the Responsible Lithium Partnership, we are breaking new ground beyond supply chain due diligence in the narrower sense. The reason is simple. We do not want to exclude only the symptoms of human rights risks, but also to combat the causes. Especially in our deeper supply chains, these causes are often systemic. To grasp them by the root, strategic collaboration is key. Together, we create a bigger impact. That's why we are jointly developing industry standards for sustainable mining practices with other companies. Some good examples are Drive Sustainability, the Responsible Mica Initiative, and the Initiative for Responsible Mining Assurance. And that's why we engage in very concrete social and educational projects. With partners such as Der des Hommes in India or Bon Pasteur in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, we are aiming to improve the living condition of people there. All in all, it's about significantly improving the status quo. That's also why we strive not to withdraw from critical countries in general. Also, it might be the easiest way sometimes, especially from a liability perspective. We prefer and follow a different approach. It's called empowerment before retreat. That also means that we don't simply exclude suppliers from our supplies network if we find out about problems. Instead, we first address the problems together with the respective supplier and local experts in order to find solutions. Empowerment before retreat is promoted by most of the relevant NGOs in this area. This brings me to my next point. We intensively engage with politics, science, and civil society, ask for feedback, and share our experience on a regular basis. We are transparent about our efforts and put them to the test beyond formal reporting. As industry lead, we have been actively involved in the automotive industry dialogue for business and human rights by the German government from the very beginning. We also review our due diligence processes with NGOs and other stakeholders, for example, at our annual sustainability dialogue. If you are further interested in the topic, I cordially invite you to take part in this event. In the meantime, let me underline some legal aspects as well. As you might know, I'm a lawyer by training, so that's unavoidable. It's important to bear in mind that human rights due diligence is a duty of care, rather than an obligation for a result. This is important because there won't be 100% certainty in the near future that there are no human rights violations at all in our complex supply chains. This is also reflected in the upcoming regulations. You need to show credibly that you are doing everything you can to mitigate the risks of human rights violations. By doing so, we are also protecting the company from significant litigation risks. However, we often actually go beyond regulatory requirements and are constantly refining our human rights respect system and other measures. What helps us in this regard is our sustainable corporate governance. What comes to your mind when you hear the term governance? Admittedly, it sounds as dry as dust, like a lengthy bureaucratic process. And in fact, too much governance can be at the expense of achieving environmental or social goals. But we need a tailwind for the transformation, not a bureaucratic headwind, at the company and in the regulatory sphere. That's why we at Mercedes-Benz design our governance as an enabler for E and S. We use governance as a driver for innovation and for getting ahead of the wave, including the regulatory one, which is getting bigger and bigger. Our human rights respect system is one example illustrating this understanding. Another example is our technical compliance management system. As a part of our product development process, it is designed to put innovations on the road in a legally and socially sound manner. One of these innovations, the Drive Pilot, allows you to drive up to 60 kilometers per hour without having your hands on the steering wheel and even without your eyes on the road. Suddenly, governance doesn't sound as dry as dust anymore, does it? The Drive Pilot enables you to drive in conditionally automated mode in heavy traffic on suitable motorway stretches in Germany. Markus and his R&D team have done a great job by making this possible technologically. However, there were also a lot of legal challenges, simply because the regulatory environment is not yet mature. On top of that, the paradigm shift from human to machine causes new legal, technological, and ethical questions. How do we translate traffic law developed for human drivers to machine code? In which situations should a human driver take over? What is the assumed behavior of other traffic participants? This is where our technical compliance management system comes into play. It helps us to find well-balanced solutions and safeguard the legal compliance of our products, even when there is no blueprint. Within the technical compliance management system, our engineers, product managers, safety experts, lawyers, and compliance officers work together across disciplines and as equals early on in the development process. In the case of automated driving, we additionally included ethics experts in this team. And obviously, with success. With the Drive pilot, Mercedes-Benz was the first manufacturer in the world to receive an internationally valid system approval for conditionally automated driving. The example shows, with product complexity rising quickly and legal frameworks not keeping pace, traditional compliance management tools are no longer sufficient. The risks to our business are very dynamic, and we must consciously take these into account. That's why we are permanently analyzing potential future requirements of legislation and the demands of society, and transferring them into the company and its technologies. This is true to the principle that not everything that is legal is legitimate, and not everything that is legal or legitimate today will be legal or legitimate tomorrow. If we do it right, we will have established appropriate structures before requirements become legally binding or social consensus. We call these adaptive compliance. In this way, we want to cover all relevant compliance risks, including ESG risks, along our entire value chain. To this end, we are heavily focusing on fields like software compliance, cybersecurity, and social compliance right now. All of them are crucial for our future success. All in all, we need to make the right value-based decisions at the right time to make our sustainable transformation a success. Besides the technical compliance management system and adaptive compliance, there are basic governance structures at the Mercedes-Benz Group that lay the foundation for that. Let me just mention a few. First, we have the right competence in the supervisory board. Just recently, we proposed 2 new members for it. Ola already told you. Dame Polly Cartiz and Marco Cobetti are proven experts for ESG and luxury goods, perfectly fitting with our corporate strategy. Second, we have an interdisciplinary group sustainability board headed by 2 board members, Marcus and myself. We ensure that sustainability and ESG aspects are involved in internal strategic decision-making. Third, we want to be challenged from outside the organization, like in our advisory board for integrity and sustainability. The constant dialogue with external experts allows us to identify and consider new trends early on. And fourth, we just recently integrated ESG-related transformation targets in our executive compensation. The so-called company bonus provides variable components of remuneration for all executive managers of the Mercedes-Benz Group. It's based not only on EBIT, but also on ESG performance. The variable components are linked to financial, non-financial, and transformation targets. For the year 2022, we have just recently enhanced the transformation targets and matched them more precisely to ESG aspects. CO2 emissions targets are now covered within the E. Human rights-related targets are covered within the S. And a stakeholder engagement target is covered within the G. This simple but effective measure clearly demonstrates how our governance serves as an enabler for ESG performance. However, the best governance structure, including financial incentives, can't replace one thing: having the right mindset. Leading by example. This starts with the CEO and the board members, and then includes every single person at Mercedes-Benz. That's why we encourage all employees to internalize our guiding principles of integrity and sustainability in order to build the world's most desirable cars. We are convinced that ESG works only as an interaction. Environmental, social, and governance criteria must be balanced and well aligned. This holistic view is firmly anchored in our sustainable business strategy. We are investing a lot to meet the ambitious environmental goals. We are committed to social issues, and we stand for responsible corporate governance. We still have a long way to go, but we have made the right decisions and we are on the right track to creating sustainable long-term success. That's a good cue to hand over to Harald. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Harald Wilhelm and at Mercedes-Benz I'm responsible for numbers. We heard about the E, the S and the G from my colleagues. Now let's turn our focus to the financial perspectives of ESG to sustainable finance. We clearly stated at the Mercedes-Benz strategy update on electric drive in July last year that we want to manage the transformation in a profitable way. Why do sustainable finance and profitability go together? We are convinced that only sustainable businesses will be successful in the long term. This is our conviction. This is my conviction. You also know that it is our ambition that Mercedes-Benz should be a double-digit margin company also in an EV world. We have decided our ambition 2039 and the strategic decision to go all electric require a more bold and radical reallocation of capital and investments. Only on that basis, you can be a double-digit margin company. What does it mean? We're shifting gears. Capital allocation is moving to EV only. We invest in 3 all-electric architectures, MB.EA, AMG.EA and then EA, thereby adding exciting new models to our portfolio next to the ones we already have. Beyond products, we also invest in green production and an intensified battery footprint. We invest in sustainable technologies and we invest in the future of our people. As communicated last December, for the transformation into an emission-free and software-driven future, the board signed off an investment plan for the years 2022 to 2026 of more than 60 billion euros. A part of this plan is that we radically reduce our non-BEV investments. By 2026, they will go down by 80% compared to 2019 levels. So, how do we finance our transformation in a sustainable way? In 2020, we created our Green Finance Framework. Thanks to the framework, our capital allocation and financing needs are aligned with our Ambition 2039 to be CO2 neutral 10 years ahead of the targets outlined in the Paris Climate Agreement. Today, the Green Finance Framework brings together scientists, sustainability experts, and treasury staff to handle ESG finance topics in a systematic and consistent manner. The Green Finance Framework, which is aligned with International Capital Market Association, Green Bond and Green Loan Principles, was rated dark green by Cicero in 2020 and received an excellent rating for its governance procedures. So far, we have very successfully issued 2 green bonds under this umbrella. They were many times oversubscribed, and we were happy with the financial conditions outperforming conventional issuance. The proceeds were used to fund clean transportation and energy efficiency, including our EQS, EQA, and EQB models, as well as the battery storage system used in our Factory 56. Moreover, last September, we published an allocation and impact report, which was also well received by investors. Now, we're committed to overhaul our Green Finance Framework to align it with the requirements of the EU taxonomy. Looking ahead and based on our experience with green bonds, we see new opportunities. With the start of mass production of EVs in Bremen, in Tuscaloosa, and in Beijing, we see a real catalyst for sustainable financing as well. Scaling exciting electric vehicles creates new green assets in the form of vehicle financing and leasing portfolios from our captive financing arm. Thanks to our Green Finance Framework, the company can now increase the eligible asset size for additional fixed income instruments. Let me give you an example how we look at things in a holistic way. Our captive finance arm actively supports our EV sales targets. Green mapping is a key word. So what is it? Green mapping is an initiative for Mercedes-Benz Mobility to make personalized offers to bring customers from combustion engine vehicles into hybrid or electric vehicles. The initiative leverages our established core retention software and is live in 14 markets globally. And the first results are already quite exciting. Our xEV share of sales is 6 percentage points or 54% higher than without green mapping. But we won't stop here and are currently working on scaling the initiative further. What else to come? Going forward, we are committed to increasing the variety and share of our green financing instruments. For example, we are looking into green ABS, being one of the largest ABS issuers worldwide. Additionally, besides evaluating further green bonds in Europe, we intend to issue green bonds in the US and Chinese markets. Such issuances are, of course, subject to actual funding needs and the portfolio development in the respective markets. We are also ready to include green KPIs, incentivized with a bonus-malus scheme, for example, the European CO2 emission target, into some of our bilateral funding agreements where appropriate. Our target is to cater to the entire bandwidth of potential investors. Also, Mercedes-Benz itself intends to be more assertive as a sustainable investor. With 24 billion euros of pension assets, Mercedes-Benz Group operates as an investor in the capital markets. Thereby, ESG criteria play an increasingly important role in our investment process. Our focus here is on ensuring that the inclusion of sustainability aspects within our investment decisions, a high level of transparency, as well as proper consideration of associated risk and return aspects. In order to achieve this goal, we have developed a sustainability concept for our pension assets comprising 3 pillars. First, we use a negative list to exclude companies which do not fulfill our core requirements. For example, companies that are involved in human rights violations. Second, we allocate assets to ESG-themed investments to support a sustainable transformation of the economy and to profit from game-changing developments. Finally, we will drive ESG integration within our individual mandates together with our investment managers. For example, by applying sustainability benchmarks, ratings, and specific sustainability KPIs. We work exclusively with investment managers who have signed up to the UN Principles of Responsible Investment. We all know to make a solid investment decision, it requires data and transparency. And not only on financial performance, but also data about environmental and social performance. We offer our investors maximum transparency with a broad range of reports, including those aligned with TCFD and SASB. A month ago, we published reporting in accordance with the EU taxonomy for the first time in our annual report. We fully support the targets of the taxonomy to support the climate goals of the EU and the EU Green Deal. However, disclosing eligibility is not what provides transparency. That's why we have not only published what is required by regulation, we have gone beyond that. Our figures already reflect the technical screening criteria of below 50 gram CO2 per kilometer, WLTP, for our vehicles, which needs to be applied from the 2022 reporting year. Additionally, we provided further details on the investments of our products. For sure, when applying stringent criteria for our current vehicle portfolio, the numbers are low. But the decision to go all electric has already been made, and therefore, so has the decision about where to allocate capital. Since the share of our electric and plug-in vehicles is rapidly increasing, we expect our capital expenditure eligible for classification under the EU taxonomy to therefore increase significantly in the future. We have already more than 40% capitalized R&D expenditures relating to low-carbon vehicles and 35% capex for PP&E, and this share will rise year after year. It's also crucial for us that we are challenged by third parties regarding our ESG performance. That brings me to the subject of ESG ratings. Analysis of our ESG ratings is an important aspect to identify and close transparency gaps. In 2021, we were able to significantly improve those ESG ratings, which are the most important for our shareholders. And let me add, we welcome all initiatives, such as the IFRS, ISSB, that serve the overarching goal of transforming ESG reporting, including taxonomy, into a global standard that is reliable and comparable. To sum it up, I'm convinced that ESG and finance go hand in hand. And the axis between capital markets and corporations will be a key driver for integrating financial performance with environmental and social performance. In my view, capital markets have decided only sustainable businesses will be investable in the future. Others will run out of road. We have clearly decided in favor of capital allocation towards sustainable business. We want to capture new opportunities from sustainable finance, and we are committed to full transparency regarding the process of our journey.